Give it up for Tom. Give it up for Tom.
Hello. Everybody's familiar with the term ADSR, right? So that's not foreign to anybody. Cool. When it comes to Simpler, right? It's one of the most powerful instruments in Ableton because you can kind of just shape it to do whatever you want, right? So Simpler is essentially just a kind of pared back sampler, but also just, you have so much control over things, it's kind of wild. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab a sample here. Wow, there we go. We got a little horn, got the little harp. All right, cool. All that is in C. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this horn, right? And now it is in my Simpler. Go up. All right, so I could just play that as is if I wanted to just, make a quick, just tap in some notes here. It's gonna sound not great, I'm sure. But if I played this, great, I got a thing, right? But that's not very exciting. So Simpler is cool because, I'm gonna zoom in here. I got so much control over the sound, right? And so what I was asking about synthesis and how we understand it, the reason I wanted to ask that is because we're gonna dive into all these controls down here, and we're gonna dive into LFOs and all that stuff. So if I say the word LFO, does that make sense to everybody too? Cool. So when I'm in my Simpler, there's two views. I've got my sample view, which lets me just see the sample waveform. Right now, there's nothing exciting happening here, just the sample as is, right? I've got three different modes I can use. I've got classic, which is just I'm gonna hit the button, and it's gonna play, right? If I hold it down, it'll go through the whole thing. If I don't, it'll cut off, right? One shot is I hit the button once, goes through the whole sample. Slice, we're gonna get into a little bit more later, but it will automatically slice things for you. So I can start at different points in the sample. I'm gonna focus on classic mode for a minute. So when I'm doing synthesis, we can kind of think about my sample here in Simpler as my oscillator, essentially, right? This is the thing that is giving me the sound that I'm going to shape. So if I start messing with the ADSR down here, so attack, we know, is gonna be how long it takes to hit the sustain level. All right, we lower that attack, we raise that attack. It's gonna take forever, the sample's super short, so we're never gonna hear the maximum velocity there. If I have a millisecond attack, it is an instant high level sound, right? Big amplitude. Get in the middle there, kind of gets a ramp up, right? When it comes to our sustain right now, we're at 0 dB, which means it's maxed out. So decay and sustain are kind of intrinsically linked, right? Decay is gonna be how long it's gonna take for that sound to go down to whatever my sustain level is, right? So I'm at 600 milliseconds. Right now, it's not gonna do anything because I'm maxed out, right? But if I take this down, you can see it's gonna take longer to get to that sustain level, right? Take my sustain level down even more. Not the best sample for this, so if I wanted to really show that off, I could go, grab this little choir sample real quick. I got this guy. Okay, now I can. You hear it starting to shape the sound a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna actually go back to this other sample. Grab that down here. Cool. And then release is gonna be how long my sample lasts after I release the note, right? If I take this all the way down, oops, not that one. Instantly goes away once I release that button. Bring it back up. So you've got four different sections in your control view here. So you got your filter, which is gonna let you shape that sound. You got our LFO, which lets you send an LFO to 4 different places in Simpler. So if I wanted to, let's say I moved this down a little bit, and we wanted to send my LFO to the filter. You can hear it's starting to modulate that frequency in there. I can make that faster. So you can already start to see how you can take a simple sample and just start messing with it and getting really cool stuff happening. Does everybody understand how an LFO works before I move on from this? Any questions on that? So yeah, the idea is basically I can take, so in this LFO I've got a couple different options for waveforms, right? So right now we're just gonna keep it at a sine, most basic, waveform you can have. The idea is if I change down here my hertz, LFOs typically range from 0.1 hertz to 30. They're like, again, it's low frequency, right? It's super, super slow. They're typically not an audible sound. But because their frequency is so low, what it does is it starts to mess with other parameters. And so sonically it is technically doing something, but if you played an LFO by itself, you're not gonna hear it. So the way it interacts with different things, right? So if I do, do the pitch, do more filter, we'll do some volume, and I'm actually gonna grab that choir sample again so you can really hear this. Bring this down a little bit. So you can hear, let me loop that too. So you start to hear. So you start getting real crazy, right? And if I start boosting up the frequency of this,
It's really neat on a roller coaster.
right? So I can send that LFO to 4 different places. I can pan it around. I can change the waveform on here. And then because LFO Simpler is also polyphonic, does everybody know what polyphonic means? Play more than one note at a time, right? Have a little chord going there. Right. So now I can just start layering all sorts of different sounds on top of that when the LFO is going to make it do its thing. In here, we've got our amplitude envelope, and we've also got our pitch envelope. So if I take, let's chill all this out. So the amplitude envelope is just, again, these controls down here, but now you can see it in an actual, envelope form. You can, visualize it. It's a little bit more helpful. And then we can also start to modulate the pitch with an envelope. On the bottom here, we've got just straight up transposition, right? So if I don't want to do that, so if you want to start modulating your pitch, you have to go up to this little corner here, so this pitch envelope, and you want to turn it to kind of where you want your starting pitch to be. So if I want it to be 2 octaves down, and now it'll ramp up, right? If I want it to be 2 octaves up, now to ramp back down. So the idea is you're going to take your starting pitch, and it's going to eventually go down to what your sustained pitch is going to be, which is going to be, in this case, just C. Eventually, right? And then you can kind of shape that, how long it's going to take. Do all sorts of fun stuff like that. If we get rid of that, we've got just our regular tuning down here. So ideally, this sample's already in C, but if I was to, let's see, tuner's your best friend when you're doing sound design in Ableton. This kind of modulates a little bit, but it hangs out in C, right? But if I wanted it to, I don't know, start at G, I could just hit this little transpose down here and just start moving it around. So this is really helpful for sounds you might be taking in that aren't already in the key that you need them to be in. When I'm doing sound design, I like to get everything to start at C, just because, if I'm playing it on an actual keyboard, it's a little bit easier, right? And then you can also, which is really nice, just do some detune by sense. So just really, really slight, right? go all the way down to 50. This is really nice if you start doing some like layers of Simpler. If you're familiar with synthesis, you know that like detuning oscillators is a really, really cool thing to get more space, right? So that's kind of your control in there. You've got your velocity, volume control. So now if I hit this really, really softly, you know, it really is going to get to the velocity that you control. It's basically, it's almost, think about it like a dry wet for like how hard you're hitting the keys, right? So I hit this softly. If I hit this really loud, now it's really loud, right? But you can kind of shape that down so it's less sensitive, right? So if I do like, I don't know, 0%, it's always just going to be the same volume. So again, as you're picking samples and doing whatever you want with whatever sound source you have, you might say, okay, well, I don't need this to be a dynamic source of sound, right? So I can just have this be set to 0, and I know no matter what I'm playing, it'll always be the same exact volume. If you want it to be something that's super dynamic, like say you're resampling like, I don't know, string, right? If you want to be able to just kind of press in there nice and gently and then really be able to get louder if you need to, that's a really nice tool there. Spread is going to spread things through your stereo field. So you got here, it's a little bit wider, it puts things kind of out of phase essentially. Put it back, feels a lot more mono. You got 0 to 100 there, you can't go negative stereo space or anything like that. Pan is pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. You know, you can move it all the way over there, move it all the way over there. You can also have like a random panning, so to kind of just pick a percent, and it'll just move into the stereo space randomly, right? So that's really cool if you're doing something kind of texturally, and you might want it to just jump around the space, not necessarily controlled. That's just kind of a really nice thing to do if you just want something to almost feel kind of just naturally moving through space. Filter envelope, which again, you know, just more ADSR loveliness that you can use. Let's see here. Turn the amount up. We've also got different filtering modes here, so a lot of this is really nice, especially if you start doing some low-end stuff, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember what all these do anymore, but essentially they're all just kind of different drive modes, which will just give you nice, really nice saturation of things. So you got here, start to really overdrive it, which is really nice if you're doing some low-end stuff like kick drums or whatever you're gonna want to do that might need some extra, just some extra saturation to kind of cut through that mix. All right, so now, and I'm gonna make this sound like something it's not. So we got our horn sample, right? Bunch of stuff you can do here, right? So to me, wow, it's really close. I'm getting like a low end, almost like kick drum sample out of this, right? So fun fact about Simpler, you can also do this, so you can kind of see your waveform on top of things, which is nice. So ideally what I'm thinking is, I need to kind of zoom in on a space that I think would sound good to change the sound into something else. So just like in everything else in Ableton, if you have like an audio clip, you know, in your audio clip view, you can zoom in with these little flags for your start and end points. This is essentially just like if I loaded an audio clip in. I've got control over my warp modes. So I can go over here and warp things. You know, I got beats. You got tones, texture, repitch, complex, all the stuff that's in your normal audio clips, right? And then I can also do little things like if I wanted to come in and reverse it, just like in a regular audio clip, I can do that. So now I'll start over here. Right? So I get control over that. We're gonna go back and re-reverse that. So now we're going to kind of get into the controls down here. So this is where kind of Simpler is going to be different than your regular audio clips. So down here, we've got our gain, which is, you know, you do have an audio clip, you can turn it way up. Don't recommend that all the time. You can turn it way down, now you have nothing. You can choose where your sample is going to start. So the yellow part, so everything that's blacked out, you're not going to hear. So that'll start right there, and that's already kind of like a cool pluck. See, your length will also just change the endpoint of that. So you could do it multiple ways, right? You could do it with the flags, or you could do it if you wanted to just leave this open and do it here. You could do it either way. To me, the flag is a little quicker sometimes, and then I can just kind of get more granular control over it once I start using these. So yeah, I usually go narrow in on what I want. Cool, and I think I'm gonna want to tail a little bit. Cool, all right. So now, we can start shaping this. So I've got this horn, sounds like a horn. What I can start doing now is, are we familiar with the different types of synthesis? We got subtractive, additive, FM, all that stuff. Simpler is essentially, what you're gonna get into with this is gonna be mostly just subtractive, which is gonna be just kind of taking things out to make a new sound, a new shape, right? So I could start kind of like that, and then I might want to okay. I don't want to. So, fun fact. When you are, so there's this fade button that's blacked out if you are warping. So I warp this and I go back into loop mode. I can't fade. I actually don't know why that is. It's kind of annoying, but you have to remember if you want to, if you're trying to loop something and you want it to kind of have a nice crossfade, you're gonna want to go out of your warp mode. And be able to mess with that. Cool. I bring that up because I've changed my mind and I kind of want to make this into like a drone. So right now I've got just the C hanging out. It's kind of it's looping. So now what I want to do is find a good loop point. Then I will so the tricky part with this stuff is just kind of finding a spot that feels good to you in your ear when you want to loop it. Kind of like that. So now what I can do is start messing with the LFO. So let's say I want my LFO to modulate the filter. Maybe do a little bit of pitch. And then because I want that to have a little bit more bite, drive that up a little bit. All right. And then now I've got control over that if I want to play it up here. Right. So I kind of like it here. So let's just say we cool. So now I got a loop of this happening. Whoop. I can just play that back, right? So I went from that to this like sci-fi drone, right? Same sound source, but you just kind of shape it into being whatever you want, right? Another really cool thing you can do is take, so get rid of this, go to another one. Things like voices, right? Not that low. So right now, this is just a bass simpler, so it's not going to loop or anything like that. So I can just, all these, because they're at different pitches, they're going to end at different times. All right, so I don't want that to happen, right? So if I want to make this choir sound and be able to play like a big fat chord, what I need to do is change how it's working. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to want to loop this, but I'm going to want to warp it because if I don't warp this, it's always going to finish at different times because the way that the audio is going to work is just the faster sound is going to end faster than the slower sound. The higher sound is going to end faster than the lower sound is. So what I want to do is I want to warp this, and for this case, I'm just going to jump straight into complex. So now, because I didn't loop it, obviously didn't loop over, but all my sounds end at the same time, right? So now, it'll loop over and over again. But the problem is, it's always going to restart at the beginning of that. So what I want to do now is find a good loop point again. So right now, it'll still start at the beginning. And then this blue box is going to be my loop points. So what I want to do now is just kind of figure out a spot where that feels kind of decent. Because I'm not going for like ultra realism, I think that's fine for here. So now I can play those chords to my heart's content, right? But there's obviously a lot more I can do with this. So dive back down in here. So now I've got a basic little pad sound we have. We can kind of shape this a little bit more too. So if I wanted to, let's say, start this kind of in the middle of, I can start to kind of play with the ADSR here and make this maybe to like a little more of a plucky sound. So now it's like a whole different instrument just right out of that choir sound, right? And now I can just do. Just play whatever I want, right? And then I also still have the option of still kind of holding that out, right? So I can do this, or I can do this. I still got it. So now I've got multiple uses out of that one sound. So let's say, are you guys, is everybody on Ableton 12 here? Is that?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, cool. Have you guys used any of the new generative features in the MIDI clips?
Yeah, I think so.
Is anybody familiar with Seed?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about Seed because I think it is one of the coolest things on the planet. So I don't know how it's going to work in here. It's all just kind of random, but we're gonna experiment. So actually, let me walk you through that real quick. So if I launch a new clip in my choir sound here, on the left side of the screen, I've got all these controls. If you go down all the way to generate, you got things that will kind of just generate basic ideas for you. And a lot of this is really cool. I like seed because it just, you kind of pick a pitch you want to start on and it will just kind of just do things around it. It's really hard to explain. I need to like sit down and really like learn this, but I've been messing with it. I think it's just the coolest thing. So we're gonna do anywhere from C3 to C5, and I'm just gonna hit this button. And now I've got a bunch of notes in here. No idea what it's about to sound like. We're about to see. All right, I don't hate that, but I don't love it. So now I can kind of start to mess with this. So I've got these controls down here. So density, I can choose how dense this is all gonna be. So I max this out to 100. There's like just more notes, right? And it's like insane now, right? I can take this down, 23. Zeros, obviously, there's not gonna be anything there. I can add more voices. I think that's kind of cool. So again, just a reminder, we started out as this, and now we have this. All right, so now, another really cool thing you can do in Simpler is start shaping drums out, right? Right there, all right. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna make a new MIDI track, and I'm gonna throw a Simpler in there. Is everybody familiar with all like the Ableton quick keys, Control, Shift T's to make a new MIDI track real fast? Very, very convenient. Let's see.
I did not know that. Thank you for informing.
Oh, I know all the keys on like the back of my hand.
What's your favorite keyboard shortcut right now, though?
Ooh. Control Shift W opens another window. So if I've got multiple screens, which I kind of don't, I'm mirrored. But if I got two monitors, I can just have both. You know, I can have my session view and my arrangement view, which is very, very helpful. That's my favorite shortcut. So now I'm gonna take. I'm gonna take that time and I'm gonna throw it. Fun fact: you can just grab any audio in your arrangement view and then just throw it into a Simpler. Maybe. There we go. Cool. So I can take that. This can shut up. And then I've got time. It does not keep all the effects that are on there, but that's okay. Time. So I'm gonna crop that out. Now I'm gonna find a spot that I like. I'm going to do this. Not that. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start messing with the filter. And I wanna get something percussive out of this. So actually I think I wanna go back to, let's see, go up. All right, and because I need to warp this, keep it at beats actually. Cool. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some drive to this. Probably go down another. Cool, let's see, let's take that down a little bit. Cool, drive that up some more. Then I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna throw some drum bus on there. Then we're going to boost that a little bit. Not that much. Cool. now I can do that, and then I can take, let's say, the same sample, right? So I just duplicated that. Command D to duplicate tracks. We're gonna name this. We're gonna name this one the kick, and we're gonna name this one. I don't know. We'll see what I want to do here. So now I'm gonna take the same sample. And let's see, or let's flip this to low pass. Yeah. And then I can see up that release a little bit. Let's figure out. Actually, I'm gonna unwarp that. Let's see, we've got. So let's make a quick thing here. Let's say here. Yeah, I like that. So I can see I'm already starting to make like a new drum kit out of this. We are gonna turn that down because we are redlining. Let's rename this snare, question mark. Sure, why not? Now I can get really granular in here. So again, just duplicated the same thing. Get really granular in here. Let's see. So now what I can do here is, let's say, let's envelope this out. Cool. And then we're gonna cheat a little bit again, and let's say let's just see how this sounds texturally, and just try a seed real quick. No idea what this is about to sound like. We're about to find out. We're gonna solo it because I'm curious. Cool. So I add my little drone back in there, get a little weird. Cool, so all right, all that is made from just super random samples that you would not think is, you know, that, right? And I can go back and let's see, I'm pretty sure, let's see if I play. That doesn't work at all, but what we can do now, let's say I don't like that as a pitch center. I can say, let's try G to, well, B. All right, hit all that, so we're gonna do this. So again, seed is definitely a chance thing. I do like that from the original, so we're gonna keep that. We're gonna do something else with that. So now, I've got a third simpler here that I have not done anything with yet. So somebody pick a type of sound they want to see sampled. Just throw a thing out there, I might have it. A harp? Look at that. So I already know what I want to do here. So I got my nice new harp sample in here. If I play it, that sounds. Gain this up a little bit. So I can one-shot this. That'll just play straight through. But in my brain, I'm hearing this reversed. So we're gonna reverse this. We're gonna start it way later. Cool, I already like that. So I think we're gonna. So we're gonna let's do texture. So now I can start making, like, I don't know, some mysterious chords, right? Actually, I'm gonna go up. Kind of like that, so it might do one of these guys. Let's rename that hatch. Should always keep your things organized. Cool, try that. We're gonna make up for my very bad timing, apparently, goodness. Cool, close enough. Cool. So for that harp sound, I got this like cool little reverse pad, right? I cheated a little bit, threw some delay on there in my returns, and you know, a little reverb around there. Kind of want to shape this a little bit more, so I think what I will do is. And then because we love automation, we're going to duplicate this. And then we're gonna go into the envelope, and what I think we're gonna do is grab our frequency control from our filter, and we're just gonna do this thing where it just ramps up towards the end. Fun fact, if you hold Option, you can make a little curve in your automations, which is very, very nice. What is that?
What did you just do there?
So here, if we're watching down here, my frequency is very slowly starting to build up, right? So if I go back in there and I make this a little bit faster, it'll be a much quicker example, right? So if I play this, whoop, right? So you see, little red DI means automation. So I just wrote an automation onto the clip. So just opens my filter up a little bit. Cool. And then what I'm gonna do after that is add, I'll dry just a hair. What I want to do is go back and filter frequency and make that way over here. So then I can go in here and start shaping this a little bit more with my LFO, right? And I can say, let's try, pitch might be a little weird, but we're gonna try it. So now you got just like a little bit of breathing in that pitch, right? You know, you can go really extreme, which is not gonna sound good. Does not sound good. Although there's a use for everything. But you just go just a little bit, maybe a little faster. Pan it out a little bit. I'll spread it. And that's like a super usable pad sound right there, I think. Cool, I like that. So now I'm gonna do one more little sound here. Anybody got another random thing they might want me to throw in here? Actually, I like that, but what we're gonna do, yeah, I like that. But this one is in B, so I gotta do a little bit of pitching. So what I need to do is, actually I need to go out of that, and we need to hit that. So what we want to do is find our tuner in audio effects. Grab that. That's in B, so I want to go into my controls here. And again, I got my little transposition here. Now we're at C. Great. I'm feeling like I need a little bit of like a plucky bass in here, so we're gonna zoom in on our sample here and kind of pick out a good spot for that. Woo. I don't want to one-shot that yet. Classic. Cool, then we're gonna shape this a little bit with our filter. Drive it out. Maybe. Fun fact: Shift Tab will switch between your clip view and your, all your instrument, your rack view. All right, I'm not about to write a whole song right now, but you can kind of see how you can shape all that, right? So again, these drums are like from my voice. This was a cello, this little bass guy, which I think is a pretty usable sound. This guy was a harp. We just reversed, did some stuff too. This is our little choir sound. Except I should probably play it. It's our little seed thing in there. Then we got our drone. All right, so that's just like a bunch of different sounds that aren't all necessarily meant to go together, but it's just like a bunch of different sounds we can use. And then for the essence of time, I don't know how much time I got left, But I do want to talk real quick about the slice mode, right? It's not like I wanted you to decide. Cool, so we're gonna grab this. So right now, if I was to play this as is, well, it's really, really low. Things set in motion when you are mine. Right, so I'm in classic mode, so I'm gonna let that button go, it goes away, right? But what we can do here is go down to slice mode. Right, so again, we talked about one shot a little bit. Hit the button once. Things set in motion. Does its thing. Slice is gonna, so when you hit slice, it puts everything into different slices, right? So if you can see on my push, right, I went from my melodic mode here into essentially like a drum pad, right? So I've got like all these little different samples I can click, right? So it just kind of slices randomly in there. So you got different slice by modes, right? So right now it's slicing by transient. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna find like the nearest big transient and it's gonna put a slice marker there, and now it's a thing I can play. You can also do it by beats. So right now I've got it in quarter notes, 1/4, right? Right. So that's just kind of slicing it by the quarter note, according to whatever my tempo is up top. And I can, get all the way down to 16 notes. So it's like really, really short slices there. You can slice it by whole 4-bar. Let's play the whole thing. You can kind of have set by regions that you can kind of drag around, so you can kind of pick and choose. Like, okay, like I like that there. Let's see which guy is that. That's lose track of time. And manual, which I've actually never used. We're gonna figure that out. Let's see. So manual looks like. Oh, okay, I get it. So you can double click on the timeline up here, and you can make different slices. So now I can just add as many as I want. So you just got to kind of get in there. So this little gray bar right here, you double click up here, and now you can just make manual slices. All right, that makes sense. Cool, we all learned something today. All right. So in this case, let's say I want to do beats, and I want to separate it into 1/8 notes, right? So now I got this grid that's going on, and I might want to, let's say, get rid of all this space in here and just do this, right? So start here, boom. So no matter where I go, it's gonna split it up into 1/8 notes between these start and end flags, right? So you can just kind of see them adding or taking away and yada, 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 right? So now I've got this. And I might actually want to make that a little bit more granular and go to 16 notes. Right? So now I can take that, and again, for the essence of time, we're going to go in here, make a new clip. We'll call this chops. And then we're just going to seed it and see what happens. And then theoretically, because it's all on the grid, this should work with like my little drum groove here. So that's like a really quick way to kind of get some, like, I know a lot of people like do vocal chops. That's a super easy way to just like get an idea in your brain and then go in and shape it the way that you want to. Some people might say it's kind of cheating. I just say it's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. Any questions on any of that? Does it all kind of make sense? I hope that like gave us all like a bunch of ideas of how to use. Like, again, this is one little synth in Ableton. I mean, all of them are really, really powerful, but I do think Simpler is probably like the most powerful tool in Ableton, which is kind of wild considering everything it can do. But yeah, does that all make sense? Cool. Any questions for me about Ableton things in general? Well, yeah, I guess I'll do the promo thing, because I don't have too much more to say. But yeah, I just dropped a new single a couple weeks ago. It's cool. You should check it out. It's called Take It Slow, by Tom Harts, Harts. I got an EP coming out on October 11th called Summer. And yeah, you should guys, follow me on Instagram, Tom Harts Music, all that good stuff. But yeah.
Are you only on Spotify? Or
I'm on everything, yeah.
He's even on Bitten.
I am on Bitten, this is true, yes. Yeah, I'm on anywhere you can think of music, you could probably find me there.
how long have you been working with Ableton?
since 2010. Yeah. Since 2008, 7, a long time ago.
I was too young to know what this was.
Yeah.
I was probably not conscious.
Yeah, it's been.
Like, appreciative of what you're showing.
Yeah.
This is actually what I want to do.
Sweet,
I want
yeah.
to turn instruments into other stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. Like most of my music is all just like textures I've just kind of just shaped from just random things I've like just seen in life. I always walk around with like a field recorder, and I'll just record things. I've done just as much as just like. Yeah, not a boom mic. But I'll just like I like to go hiking. I'll just like stand outside and I'll like stand by like a river or something, and I'll just like take that sound and maybe make it into like an IR for like reverb or something like that. Like there's a bunch of different little things you can do just by just resampling life, you know. And the cool thing on that is that nobody else will sound like you. I think we are in a weird spot in music right now where a lot of people are just kind of sounding like everybody else. But I mean, I think the more creative you can get and, you know, in your sound design and your arrangement and all that stuff, just like the more you're just gonna stand out. And also just never underestimate the power of your own voice. Just like, even if you don't sing, just like say something into a microphone and then just do things with it. Yeah. And there's a lot of, like, I have a lot of synth I made just from like me just resampling myself singing or just talking. There's one of I sneezed once while I was recording, and I made a sample out of it. Like, just.
In Simpler, can you like save like preset? Like, if you make something like, and you're like, man, this is like nice, I want to use this on another song.
Oh yeah.
Save a preset?
So this little guy down here is a little like floppy disk, which you guys might be too young for that. But if you click this, it'll let you save. So it'll open up in your usual library, and you can just kind of name it, you know, USF Simpler. Cool. Now I got that, so now I can come into whatever Ableton project I open up next and bring it in there. So yeah, there's a little guy usually on the right side, right corner of I think basically every Ableton plugin. You can just save it into your usual library. Sweet. Yeah, I mean, and it's again like the biggest thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that there's no wrong answers when you're doing this. Like sound design is weird, and a lot of times it's gonna sound bad, but that's okay because you can take that bad sound and then make it into something else, right? I did not succeed with every single thing I did in here. It's like, wow, that's not great. But I did end up with some, I think, pretty cool usable sounds eventually, you know?
I guess I do have one. So when you're selecting samples, are you kind of just going for texture? Because obviously you're changing the actual sound.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going, like, picking the horn? Are you kind of, like, what's the process?
So I come at this in like a couple different ways. Sometimes there is a baseline texture that I do want, because some things are going to complement the sound, you know, more than others. Like a horn, especially, is going to be something that has like so many harmonics in it that it's going to be good for me to kind of break down into something like a kick drum. That's going to, because again, if you got all those harmonics, it's going to help cut through that mix, right? Or it's going to be good to kind of cut down into something like that drone we made, because you got all these harmonics, so it's a more complex sound as opposed to like, I don't know, resampling like a sine wave, right? Because if I just resampled a sine wave, right, as I'm sure we know it's like the most pure form of sound, right? Nothing's really happening in it. If we resample a sine wave and try to make that happen, I'm going to have to add all these crazy effects and stuff just to get that character out of it. So yeah, your sound source is important, but also at the same time, like you can figure it out. You don't necessarily have to use, like, especially if you say you don't have a great sample library. Like I said, you just record stuff. I mean, I'm sure we all have phones. If you got a phone, use your phone microphone and just kind of record something that you think might be a good source for you. And again, it's not even necessarily the quality of the recording. Like you don't need to bust out a $10,000 microphone to make good samples, you know, especially if you're gonna just mess with them anyway. But yeah, so sometimes, yeah, I do have an idea of what the sound source needs to be, but sometimes I'll just randomly just go into my bag of samples and just say, I don't know, whatever, just throw something in there and just figure it out. It kind of depends, I guess, what your end goal really is, you know? Because sometimes I don't know what I'm gonna make, I just start making things, you know? But yeah.
Is Ableton your DAW of choice?
Oh yeah, by far. Now, especially now that it's got comping and stuff, I haven't touched Pro Tools in years. Yeah, I will say though, I do like to finish mixing and mastering in Logic, because for some reason when I'm in Ableton, I'm in creator mode and I just want to keep making cool things happen. But if I get away from Ableton and I go into something like Logic, or it used to be Pro Tools, but I kind of hate Pro Tools. But I go into something like Logic and it kind of makes me more analytical and I'm just more thinking about how this mix needs to be. So yeah, I do sometimes leave Ableton, but for the most part, I'm 100% Ableton.
No one shows FL any love. No one shows FL Studio any love.
There's nothing wrong with FL. I just don't like the workflow. I think you can get, here's the thing. It doesn't really matter what you use. It's about the end result. Like when I was going here, we would always give each other shit for like, oh, use FL, use Pro Tools, whatever. Like everybody's gonna make fun of you for your dog choice. So, like everybody made fun of me for Ableton until everybody's like, oh, yo, Ableton is kind of, it's kind of cool. But but like, as long as what you're coming up with, if your program of choice matches your idea of a workflow, then use it, you know. Or also, if it doesn't cost like $800 like the Ableton Suite does, then use it. And I mean, because Ableton's not cheap, you know. So like, there's nothing wrong with, you know, getting something that is significantly less money, but also gets you the same end result, you know. For me, it's just the way things work, and like my sound design brain wants this, you know. And it's not like there's not alternatives to this in other programs. I just think the way this works, especially like me, like when I'm playing live, I always have a push in front of me too, and all this maps natively to the push really, really easily. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for the push, I don't really know if I'd be 100% an Ableton person. But like this has kind of changed my production game. Once this dropped, and I don't know, whenever the push one came out like a billion years ago, I was like, yep, that's it. This is what I'm doing.
Well, thanks for coming, Tom.
Yeah, no problem.
Keep it up.
Thank you.